Can we design and build a complete car audio system without having the car? If you've been following along on this project, I'm working on a system that will feature a 5-channel DSP amplifier, 2 12-inch shallow mount subwoofers, and new speakers along with a custom beauty panel finish. But here's the catch, I didn't have access to the vehicle while I was doing the build. This build is actually from my brother-in-law that lives several states away, so time with the vehicle is limited to when his family visits mine. But thanks to 3D scanning technology, I've been able to build much of this project in 3D. Now, on one of the past short trips, we got all of the speakers installed, but currently they are ran off of the factory system power. Between that trip and now, I've been preparing and building everything for this stage of the installation, which will be the biggest part of all, where we need to install the amplifier rack, and the subwoofer enclosure, essentially completing the system. Is it all going to fit correctly, and will we get all the wiring done in this short window of time? We are going to find out. Hey everyone, I'm Mark. Welcome to CarAudioFabrication. Here on this channel, together we learn how to master car audio and how to design, build, and install our dream car audio system. Real quick, before we get into the content, a thank you to our channel sponsor, Crutchfield. Their website really helped with this build. We entered the year, make, and model of the vehicle, and we were able to easily determine what speakers and other car audio upgrades were possible. Even better yet, with a qualifying purchase, we got access to their research notes document for this vehicle, which showed us exactly how to disassemble the vehicle to access things like the speakers, saving us valuable time. Definitely check out Crutchfield for your next car audio project, and don't forget that you can also save on your next purchase with the link down in the video description. First things first, removing the ground connection to the battery. In fact, in our case here, I'm removing the whole battery. That will give me more access to that back there, which will allow me to pass through the firewall with our main power wire. I'm going to start removing different pieces in the interior here so that we can run our power wiring. And the first thing I'm going to remove is this seat cushion. There were 2 13mm bolts, one on each side. For removing the side trim, all of the fasteners are pretty obvious. There's several clip style fasteners. You've also got some bolts like that one right there, a Phillips head screw, etc. I was just telling Brian here that I have the motto that if you're taking something out, you might as well clean behind it. So you can see we've got some dust in here. We'll just run the shop vac real quick too. Might as well get that extra deep clean since we're here. All right, so we found a location here for the ground. We've of course looked under the vehicle as well to verify that there's nothing in the way. You always want to be careful about brake lines, that kind of thing. And just to be absolutely sure, I'm going to start with a really small drill bit. I know that if I line up with this hole vertically and this hole horizontally, there's a nice location here that I can use. So under the vehicle here, you can see that really tiny little dot right there of daylight coming through. That's the test spot that I just drilled. Again, verifying that there's nothing in the way below here. And also notice that this is super close to the actual frame of the vehicle that goes back up front to the battery. So now we're going to drill out to our final hole size. This is 3/8 of an inch. Of course, make sure we clean up all of our metal shavings as well. Next, we're going to make sure that we clean up the paint that's around this hole here. So here we have some of our new concepts, 4-gauge ground wire, and I also have a ground terminal here. I've already stripped away the insulation using my Jokari wire stripper. Now we're going to add this into the terminal. Next, we're going to take our hydraulic crimping tool here, and these are all tools that I've reviewed previously on the channel. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but I'm going to start crimping this down. We crimped it 2 times here. It looks something like this now. So now we can apply a protective heat shrink. So here we have a serrated lock washer and a flange head bolt. That's going to go through our terminal and then of course through the ground hole there. And then on the bottom here, it's hard to tell, but this is a flange head lock nut. And here's where it's definitely handy to have a friend. All right, Brian, go ahead. To avoid any corrosion, I'm going to liberally apply dielectric grease around the outside here. While I have the hydraulic crimper out, I might as well do my positive wire as well. This here is going to be the ring terminal that attaches at the battery. Back here in the engine compartment, we've poked a hole through the existing grommet there, and we have the wire worm connected to our power wire using some electrical tape. This is just going to help us guide it through that hole there. You want to pull on the worm? There we go.
Good.
Nice. Brian using that wire worm. Look at him. He knows what he's doing. Oh, nice. We'll add a wire ferrule here to our short little connection between the battery post and the inline fuse. After heat shrinking the ferrule, I then applied some of this split loom and then applied some exterior JK tapes, protection tape. Brian's got the power wire ran all the way to the back here. It needs to connect roughly here, so we have more than enough. And right now he's working on connecting to, if you can see it right there, we put the JL Audio DRC 100 control knob down there under the dash where it's easy to access. That will allow him to change the different presets on the DSP amplifier. And also we can set it up where he can control the bass level independently. So he's working on running that wire to the back as well. To hold our inline fuse for the amplifier power wire, I did print a bracket here. This is 3D printed out of ASA material. Has a brim on it there so that I could get nice adhesion. I do need to add some heat set inserts to this, but a quick check on the fitment and alignment of the mounting holes, that's good. I've got a couple other heat set inserts that I need to add. I'm gonna add those off camera, but this will give us a nice bracket that we can use to mount that. I've got the other side of the main power wire that runs into the cabin now connected at the fuse block, and of course I also did the split loom and the exterior protection tape on that as well. In the meantime, Brian also disconnected all of the gauge cluster and everything here in order to access the head unit, and the reason we need to access this is we need a way to get the signal out of the factory head unit and integrate it into our new aftermarket system, and then we also need to amplify that signal and send it back into the harness here to go to each of the different speakers. So to do this easily, we have this Pack Audio T harness here, and you can see that I've severed the connection, and I've done that just by unplugging these plugs that come as part of the kit. And what this will allow me to do is I can connect to these to get the signal out of the head unit, and I can tap into these to send the speaker wire signal that is amplified to all the speakers. And also conveniently enough, this also gives us a ground, a constant, and a switched 12-volt lead. We can use that switched 12-volt lead as our remote turn on for the amplifiers and for the integration parts. We need to guide all of these plugs that go into the T harness up through the dash. So Brian's got the other end of the wire worm right there. And I've wrapped a bunch of tape around this to temporarily hold it in place. And notice I've kind of made a cone with the tape, and I also doubled it up on itself so that I can easily remove it when we need to. But it's definitely nice to have two people. Go ahead, Brian. That way we can kind of wiggle this through. And we are officially through. I will say having that wire worm thing definitely makes this whole process a lot easier. That took what? 30 seconds maybe? So Brian's undoing the tape there, and you'll notice that we also wrap this with a bunch of that protective tape as well. That way we can simulate what's going on with the factory vehicle wiring here. So making the connections here, they've basically designed it so that you can't get it wrong. So you can see front speaker from the amp. So in other words, this is our powered signal, so we want it to go out into the vehicle. And you can see that this is a female connection, this is a male connection. You can't accidentally connect them wrong as long as you correctly match the colors. Now some of these wires are loose for the time being just because we want to verify that everything is working correctly, but this is the signal wire here, and if you missed the wiring video that I did where I wired up this amplifier rack here, I wanted to explain this to you guys. So what I've got going on is this is the signal coming from the head unit going into our fix OEM integration DSP, which then flattens everything out and sends it over to the VXI amplifier. And then this is our amplified signal that comes out, goes into this harness, and it goes up to the front of the vehicle and connects to all the speakers. Now I added these Deutsch connector plugs here, and what's really cool about the way this is designed is technically I could unplug this plug, plug it into this one, and we're back to our factory deck powering all of the speakers. So if Brian needs a little bit more storage space in his vehicle, easy enough to take out this full assembly and wire this back in. Day 2 of the install now. So a summary on yesterday, we basically started around 4 p.m. and worked till about 11 p.m., about 7 hours of time. And I knew I wanted to get to the point that the system was completely installed and playing and all of the interior panels were put back in the vehicle, and we are there. So we have all of the power connections made up front, along with the installation of our fuse on our main amplifier wire. You can see everything on the dash is all buttoned up and reinstalled into the vehicle. You can see we have our control knob here that Brian ran the wiring to, and this also has a status LED. We'll talk more about that later. All of our power connections and signal connections are now made at the amplifier rack. And I put the rear beauty panels together piece by piece. I mentioned that I wanted to have the system up and playing, and part of that process was calibrating the Fix 86 OEM integration DSP from JL Audio. For this process, what we had to do is up at the front of the vehicle at the head unit, we have to play a calibration track, and within 5 seconds of starting that track, I just simply hold this calibrate button, and then the Fix runs through its calibration process. Now with its status LEDs here, it can tell us if the calibration is in fact good to go, which in this case it is. You can see right there, green is calibration successful. The reason that this is alternating a little bit between orange and green right now is I have the audio way down in the vehicle, so it's just barely detecting the signal presence. The reason we need to add the Fix 86 is because we are using the factory head unit as our main source. So because of that, the factory system has EQ applied already within the system. Even if you set all of the tone controls and everything to flat, the manufacturers do this so that they can make the stock system sound somewhat acceptable. But when we're adding an aftermarket system, we want to negate all of that processing and flatten it out, and that's what the Fix 86 does, or the Fix 82, depending on how many output channels you need. But you can see here, this is after running through the calibration process. You can see the factory EQ that is applied to each of these channels originally, and you can see our new output that is completely nice and flat. If we switch over to the Tune tab here, it is worth noting that you can do some basic EQ on each of the output channels here, but we will have far more controls in the VXI amplifier, which is the DSP amp. Now I'm going to turn my attention to tuning the DSP amplifier, which controls every speaker and, of course, the subwoofers for the system. I have a USB wire temporarily connected here. That runs down here to the JL Audio Max measurement device system. I then have another USB wire running out, which goes to my computer, and we also have power running to the Max. And we have this 5 microphone array that is in the driver position. I'll be playing pink noise on the system, which sounds something like this. And here in the software, we can go through the tuning process. Now, one of the first things we need to do is, of course, our initial setup where we route all of the signals from the inputs to the outputs. And I just want to give you guys a quick breakdown here. I'll be setting the input sensitivity throughout this process. I'll also be going through a full tune where I adjust the EQ for each of those output channels. I'll, of course, also be setting up my crossover points, time alignment, etc. To explain the tuning process properly requires a lot of time, so I have a full separate video all about this process that you can check out up here in the corner of the screen. So I finished the tune and we are in the vehicle now. We've been sitting here for about 20 minutes listening to a bunch of different songs. Give me your first impressions.
A whole lot louder.
You can't even talk. Way much more noise.
Sorry, what? I can't hear you anymore.
Way much more sound.
No, but it's definitely a big difference. When we first did just the car door speaker upgrades, it definitely got a lot clearer there. Mm-hmm. But now that the bass is in, it's been tuned, it's crazy how clear it is. I thought it was clear before, but yeah, I didn't know the difference until now.
Yeah, it's much more dynamic too with like that added power from the amplifiers. It sounds really good. We've been listening to a wide variety of different tracks, a lot of more sound quality oriented stuff that's more like acoustic, and also some fun bass stuff.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about, what do you think about like the subwoofer output level?
It is fantastic.
Yes. It's pretty substantial. I mean, we have to remember, so these are two 12s that are shallow mount, and the subwoofers are only running off 600 watts RMS, but it's definitely a substantial amount of bass. It gets really deep, really low, which it should for being a sealed enclosure, but it definitely gives that impact that you can kind of feel in your chest, but it also, on the real low notes, it really just completely fills the cabin. But that's my opinion. What did you?
It'll shake the rust off if I have any.
What's actually surprising is we didn't have to do a whole lot of sound treatment to the trunk. The trunk in this vehicle is actually pretty solid, even with really ripping on it. Like the rear trunk didn't like make any noise on the outside of the car or anything, which is good. As much as I'd love to, have the car for a month and completely take everything apart and sound treat everything, obviously the whole interesting aspect of this build is the fact that I designed everything in 3D based off of the 3D scan data, basically built everything without the car, and then over the course of probably really only 2 weekends now, like maybe, I don't know, probably 10 hours each weekend, we've done this complete install, probably actually less than that. So, and don't forget, we're also filming throughout that process too, which definitely adds a lot of time. But
Yeah.
you hear the ball like bouncing back and forth. Overall, happy with it?
Oh yeah, I'm ecstatic. And there's a nice little dialer knob, so when I have the kids in the car, I can turn down the bass so I don't blow out their eardrums.
Yeah, that's our thing. So down here, so based off the preset that we are doing, we can see the LED light there, and I didn't explain that to you yet. So the light blue, this is with the subwoofer EQ'd, and then the solid blue here, this is with the subwoofer EQ off. So this is if you really just want to rip on the bass.
Nice.
Now, we have to talk a little bit more about this as well.
It's fantastic. It really is. The geometry of it, the color schemes fit perfectly with the car.
Yeah.
It was made for it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, so it's very serviceable as well. If we did need to take things apart, this comes off with magnets. And when I talked about this, being held on with magnets previously, a lot of people were wondering about it rattling. Each of these magnets has a pull strength of something like 20 pounds, and this is definitely super light, so it really holds it on there. We were really ripping on it. And did you hear any rattles?
0 rattles.
Yeah, 0 rattles. We don't have to worry about that. But if we, again, very serviceable, we can pop that off. And Brian, show us real quick too. We did a little modification behind the scenes here. So, right now the enclosure is sitting on top of this, which is a solid piece. So that's kind of a bummer, right? You can't get to your spare tire.
Well, not anymore.
But wait, there's more, or can you? So what we did is we actually really lightly scored the back side of this fiberglass. And what that allows us to do is fold this up, and we tested it last night. Can in fact remove the spare if needed. So retain full use of that as well. Don't forget though, on this, if you want to see the full step-by-step process of how we did all of the fabrication to make all of these pieces, how I did all of this work in here, you can check out the previous videos in this playlist here on the channel. Another thing I like about the JL Audio TW3s is they have this easy to use optional grill that you can easily pop into the retaining ring there if you do want to protect the subs. Overall, I cannot believe how smoothly this build went without having the vehicle on hand to be able to constantly check fitment throughout the build process. Essentially, building the subwoofer enclosure and amplifier rack on the computer in virtual reality was a really fun experience. And I think in the future, this is something that we're going to see more and more with both hobbyist and professional grade shops. I'd imagine that a shop could have a vehicle dropped off for just a few hours while they do a 3D scan session, and then a designer could design for the vehicle and build many different aspects of that build without actually having access to the vehicle. This could be potentially advantageous to a client, as they may not need to have their vehicle tied up at a shop for as long as it normally would be throughout a build process. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Don't forget, when you're planning your next car audio build, you can take advantage of the resources over at our show sponsor, Crutchfield. Be sure to check them out, and don't forget that you can save on your next purchase with the links down in the video description. A big thanks to them, along with Jerry and the rest of the Patreon membership team, for making these videos possible, and thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching.